Hello, everybody. My name is Trina Gunzel, and I'm so excited to be teaching this workshop and training for you today. I'm actually going to be speaking on teaching with medical needs and crazy schedules. And I have some really exciting things that I'm going to be sharing with you today, specifically about the power of themes and portfolios, and then also giving you some special travel tips and ways that you can incorporate that so that you can have an educational experience for your kids. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Trina Gunzel. I have a master's in education. I did teach in public education for 10 years as a bilingual teacher and as English as a second language. I also trained at the State Department level in Oregon and Arizona, teaching teachers in best teaching practices. I love helping parents be able to have resources and know how to create amazing experiences for their kids, because when my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 4, it sent us on this different path. Teaching full-time for me was no longer an option. I had a kiddo who needed medical needs, giving him insulin every 2 hours, from checking his blood sugar to shots, and it was not conducive to a 9-to-5 job anymore. We tried having him in regular public school for a while, and it just didn't work. Even at the school that I taught, they tried the best they could, but it honestly wasn't safe for my son. As a brittle type 1 diabetic, his blood sugars were up and down. He wasn't stable. I did a lot of teaching and educating the teachers so they could have low blood sugar supplies in their rooms in case of lockdowns. But in the end, we just decided to homeschool our kids and create a completely different experience. So whether you are thinking about homeschooling, whether you are somebody who maybe you want to homeschool your kids, but you're not sure to start, welcome as people are joining us. Whether you are somebody who maybe has a child in public school right now, but you're thinking about homeschooling, or maybe you're somebody who's already homeschooling and you are here because you are curious, how does the travel component work? How can you help adjust crazy schedules when you do have medical issues? I'm happy to answer any of your questions and share from my experience. Like I said, I homeschool my kids. My daughter has always been homeschooled. She's now 13. Our son, we started homeschooling since second grade when he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 4. We tried the public school route, but started homeschooling since second grade and all the way through graduation. And he's now actually serving a mission and graduated, and he's 18. He's in Washington, D.C., and he's doing great. So please put any questions you have into the chat. I will also put this recording into our free Heartbeat community. The app is in the comments in case you want to join us. Family-friendly community, tons of resources for you. We have a whole homeschool group and resources. So I would love to know, if you put in the chat, what ages are your kids? And are you currently homeschooling, or are you thinking about it? And that way I can kind of adjust it to your needs as well. So one of the things I wanted to share, if you like to homeschool through experiences like I do, just to give you a little background, we actually decided to travel full-time with our kids for 3 years. And so to talk about, the travel and life with crazy schedules, maybe right now you're wondering, how do you fit this all in? And one of the best things I can share with you is, don't try to make your homeschooling program at home mirror a public school educational experience. And I can share that because I tried with my kids, putting in the same structure bubbles and just going through and basically making like a mini public school at home. But my kids didn't thrive in that. They didn't enjoy it because they would get through things so much more quickly, because I only had 2 of them, versus in my public school classroom where I maybe had 28 kids or 50 kids, and there was just a different pace, right? Trying to get everybody to go along. I love hearing what age your kids are doing. 8-year-old and almost 3-year-old. I consider us almost unschoolers. Honestly, I do too. When I talk about unschooling, right, you're not doing things exactly like everyone else, and you're not doing a public school model at home. So I totally appreciate that. I'm just going to keep letting people in and welcoming them as they come. Yeah, feel free to put in the chat what age your kiddos are. I would love to know that. That really helps. So what I decided to do at home with my kids is I created Best Educators Academy, because I wanted a place and space that when my kids graduated, I could create my graduation certificates for them. But I also wanted to really tailor our educational experiences to our travel lifestyle. So at first we lived on a farm, and that was great because we could just go outside and explore. And I really love teaching in themes. Alicia says she has a 7, 5, 2, 2, and 1. We are unschoolers. Yeah, unschoolers. Yeah, I love it. Unschoolers. Well, you can relabel this as unschooling. That is fine with me, because I love having you as the parents at the driver's seat and really honor you in that role. You are your child's first teacher, right? You always were. Um, Traditionally, teaching your children at home or having mentors teach your children was the way that nobles, right? And when you look at all throughout history, like kings and queens and their children, it was all mentorship. It was type internship type things. We had people saying, oh, you have a 7, 5, 3, and 1-year-old. Okay, this is great. This helps me to know. So a lot of you are dealing with younger kiddos. And you guys, I have some very specific resources for you if you want in that Heartbeat app where I told you can click in and join our community. I have a Best Educators Resource Guide I think you would love. I created poems, songs, and chants and thematic resources to literally teach reading and writing. And it's not a big fancy curriculum. It's all related to themes that you can use throughout the year. It's a lot of fun. It's what I personally use to teach not only my kids reading and writing, but hundreds of kids in public education. These are things I use to make it fun and where my kids got results. And you can integrate it with themes. You can sing these songs if you're driving in the car or you want to make portfolio books. So we're going to kind of get into that, but you can ask me any questions. I would love to help you and meet you where you are. And with this topic, like I said, we're going to handle some very specific things because I want to make sure to cover any questions you have. Like I said, put it in the chat box there too, and I can address those. But if you're not doing this already, you might consider teaching through themes. The way I love to do that is I like to kind of plan out my calendar for the year. And I would do this with my kids. And we would really teach based on things that were happening in our environment. So, in the fall, right? That's a great time to teach about pumpkin patches and fall with leaves and go take those field trips. Everything's a field trip when you're unschooling, right? Or homeschooling. My kids would always laugh about that. Like, Mom, we're going to a fair, but it was a great way to learn through hands-on and experiences. So I want to validate and honor where you are in your journey because you know what's best for your kids, right? And I really love to encourage people to do portfolios with their kids, and it can be as simple as just a notebook, right? As simple as a notebook like this, and encouraging your kids to journal things that they are learning about. Maybe you go on a trip to a farm and they see an article on something or a recipe you could pick up that you could go back and make that recipe at home. Or maybe you travel like we did. So we would get postcards from every state we traveled to, or we took our kids to Europe twice. And one of the ways that we found that was so fun is we would all have some time to just journal, whether you want them typing it up or with those young kiddos. Portfolios like this are such a great way. And since we do have some younger ages on here, I'm just going to show you a couple things too. Like for my daughter, she loved to have a folder like this, and we would keep different samples of things she created throughout the year. So, when we were drying leaves and we were doing some leaf rubbing, we would have it in there. So all things were around fall, right? For that time of year. Here's an example from some of the things in that resource book I talked to you about. There's a chant we did about pumpkins where it's a chant in a little format here so she could read it. Pumpkins here, pumpkins there, pumpkins everywhere. But it goes through and it teaches you specific skills like farmers plant, seeds sprout, rain drops, sun shines, pumpkins here, pumpkins there, pumpkins everywhere. So kind of continues on. But when you have poems, things, and chants like that, you can take after your kids practice reading these. I always like to incorporate some form of reading, writing, and some kind of research skill based on something what they want to learn each day. Then you can add it to their folder, right, or their portfolio that they can tape and glue it in there. And then by being able to go back and read that each day or have a place for them to put their work and put in things that they're interested in, I found that I had a lot of success with my kids that way because I was tailoring their educational experiences to things they were interested in. Okay. Do you guys have any questions on that? Say, I love this about portfolios. Hey, Kira, I've been trying to figure out how simple ways to keep track of our learning journey to comply with state laws. Okay. And I'm happy to speak about that too. Okay. That is one of the things where every state is different. So you can take a look at what your state regulations are. I'm in Missouri, so literally I Googled like the State Department. It was different when my kids were in Arizona. Sometimes you have to submit forms to the state, just look at that. In Missouri, honestly, it's pretty flexible. I know they want you to record certain amount of hours and track it. And the way I did that for me, honestly, is I would go through and like set up a typical week. Okay. I would look at a week and say, okay, this is what's going to meet the State Department guidelines. And I would track it all and I would write it down. So I just had my log sheets. I have some of those for you guys in this Best Educators. I have like an online site where I just put all these resources and things to help you. It's like $20, but you can access all of it. If you message me directly, I have a downloadable form I can share with you that I created. But tracking, I thought more about, well, if I save their portfolios and materials for like 3 years, then I just had that, I never got audited or anything, but just to be able to show, did my kids complete this many hours of these things? How could I show that? For me, I documented a lot of things in our blog when we were traveling and pictures. And by going back and tracking where we were and having my own journal and reflection of like what we were doing, what we were learning about, what we were studying, I would say mine was more general, but also to meet the compliance guidelines, right? You can look and say, okay, they're requiring this many hours of reading, math. Make your logbook, just, duplicate what's required and teach your kids what they need to know. I didn't get so caught up in like this is how many minutes we have to read today, because sometimes my kids would want to sit and read a novel for 2 days and they loved it, having that flexibility. Or sometimes we would be traveling, in Europe and going on a field trip to go see Leonardo da Vinci's work or Michelangelo's work in person. To me, that was art, but I wasn't like calculating the whole trip what we did, right? So I am more an advocate of the parents and the child. Is your child learning? Are they growing? Are they having fun? Do you incorporate some elements of reading and writing naturally into what you're doing and themes based on what your child is interested in? I have found so much more success with that. And then having your own child journal and write about like what they're learning so you can track those skills. Now, if you want to use something like Khan Academy or a way to track your specific math, it's up to you, but I do want to empower you as the parents of, what your child's strengths are, and you're welcome to nurture those strengths. So many times I think what used to happen in public school is like this, the weaknesses were always focused on. So nobody had an opportunity to really get great at anything. Or in unschooling, right, or homeschooling, you can really nurture and tailor your day to what your kid needs. Feel free to ask any questions. I love seeing your comments too in the chat. So yeah, the idea of portfolios and themes, the nice part is you have some of that data collected that you could show in a notebook if you were to get audited, or, your child's notebooks. When I had our pictures and I had dates of where we were and travel and could see in journaling the progression of their writing, I really liked that too, because then I could go back and I would notice what words or things they were having difficulty with. And then I would specifically help them by, you could do it as a spelling test, but I would just point out, hey, this is actually how we spell there when you're writing it like this. You can really tailor your child's education and that more custom experience. The portfolios, I feel like, really show you the growth and progress, which would track and account for like, yes, this is how many hours you put in for reading. Like I said, create that log to meet that State Department thing if you have to have that for your state, and then just have it. North Carolina says we don't have to keep track of hours, just days. Okay, yeah, cool. So a lot of people like to take, like I'll use a notebook, like this, where I'll just put a sheet in there and print it out. And then maybe you want to handle that just weekly, once you have kind of a structure that you can just put it in there. And if you're keeping it for them or reporting, do that. If you basically comes down to what's the requirement in your state, right? And handle that by recording that information. And then using portfolios or themes allows you to track some data from your kids and see. Another fun way to do that is through video, because you can capture, especially a lot of you have little kiddos, their language and communication style, which is really cool, because if they're reading a certain poem or a story that they wrote, this is so powerful since you guys have a lot of littles. Maybe you go on a trip to the farm, okay, or the ocean. And when you come home, have them talk about their experience and color pictures about it, record them sharing their story, and just have them write down any letters or words. Just practice, even if they're scribbling. I went to the ocean and I saw a turtle and, I got to make a sandcastle. And then you also write down what they said so that you're capturing that growth. And then you can work on like one sentence at a time or helping build that out. But so many times, of course, always, I would say our children are able to communicate way more than, if you're just forcing them to say, oh, this is what I did at the beach, they might just say, I saw water versus all the descriptive language and fun that they said. So I love actually doing like dictation where they'll tell you their story, especially when you're talking kiddos who are 3 and 5. Have them tell you what they did, write down that experience, and then give that to them so that they can go back and read their own words. That's really powerful. Teaching reading and writing is my passion. So if you guys have any questions more on that, you can reach out to me. I love talking about that. Another thing we're going to talk about is just travel in general. With kids, there are so many awesome learning experiences. And I'm such a fan of that. When you guys are talking about unschoolers, you probably like the kind of outside the box, right? Not doing things like everybody else. And so teaching through experiences, I think, are so highly valuable because you're giving your kids skill sets for life. If they know how to travel, if they know how to manage money, maybe they start their own business. We're business consultants, so we teach our kids and they have their own businesses, which was awesome because we want them to have that financial freedom. When you can teach your kids about how to go in and make healthy choices at the grocery store, you could go in and even count carbs or have them, only buy fruit this time, or, that's a great tip for you guys, by the way, if you have littles and you go in the store. One of my favorite things to do with my kids was we'd go in and I would say, okay, you are in charge of picking out the 3 fruits and 3 vegetables that we're going to eat this time. And it was so cool because instead of my kids maybe choosing things that weren't just great for them, that's how we got to try all these crazy things like star fruit and what are they called? Kumquats or something. And like just all these different foods that my kids wanted to try that we maybe never would have eaten otherwise. It was like instead of arguing about the coconut, getting the coconut and letting them try it. And then they have that experience and they know for next time. So I hope you guys appreciate that little inside mom tip. Let's see. Kara said, world road schooling is totally one of my biggest dreams. Malia said, same, Kara, I'd love to do a U.S. road schooling trip and hit all the states. You guys, it is worth it. I will stand in that space for you. When our kids were, what were they? I guess 8, 7 and 12. We took our 2 kids. We had the big house, the 4,000 square foot house, the big farm, all the stuff, boat, my 2 vehicles, all the stuff, right? We literally were like, my husband lost both his parents at age 60. And we thought, why are we waiting? Why are we waiting till our kids are grown and gone to go travel? What if we did it now? And we did that. We decided to sell everything. We called an estate sale company because we had so much stuff. We're like, what are we going to do with this? Our house sold so fast. We sold everything. We had our 5th wheel in our truck. We went from idea to go in 8 weeks. And for 3 years, we traveled full time with our kids to almost every 50 state. Our goal was 50 states in 50 months. And then we took them to Europe twice because we wanted that experience. And it was the best time of our life. There are so many things on the road, and this fits right into what we're talking about. But the flexibility of what do we want to do today? We're in a new state. Everything I taught my kids was like, it was make everywhere you go feel like home. That was a big thing that we did. And then the other one was your friends are everywhere. You just have to ask their name. And that was so powerful because your kids will know how to make friends everywhere you go. And we stayed at amazing RV resorts. Like we always had fun criteria of where we wanted to stay. And because we could work on the road, right? I could literally work anywhere with a cell phone signal doing my business, right? Helping people, whether they're getting certified as coaches or starting their own business or training. We help them get up and rolling so they can literally have a high ticket program and anyone can run it. I have every kind of person, health coaches it doesn't matter. I have people who are online product stores. There's so many different things that you can do using your existing skills and talents. And it was really cool because as long as you have that cell phone signal, right, you could work anywhere. And there's so many ways to make it possible. If you guys are seriously curious about that, reach out because I could tell you like the exact modem we got and everything. But what I love to do on that was my kids had their bin, right, of their supplies, and they had their portfolio notebooks. And we would go and we'd say, what's cool in this area to learn? What are the common things in this new town? So we'd always find the local library. We'd always find the local park. We'd find our favorite grocery store that we would go to. And that's where we'd get our snacks and do our shopping. And then we would also always find a favorite restaurant, like a new place there that maybe a food we never experienced or a local market, but it was such an amazing way to literally create every day. That's one of our family mottos, like create every day, and to give our kids that experience of like, we're going to go to a new library, right? We're going to see what library times are there. We're going to check out books there. They could type up, my kids like to type up like kind of stories on their trip of their adventure and everything. And it's a great way. So if you guys have the desire to do that, I want to encourage you, like, make sure your finances are set up in a way where it's a fun experience for you. Okay. And then also traveling full time like that, you will never regret it. You're going to get so close as a family. You learn so much about each other. You learn how to manage just so many different things about life that are skills that will benefit your kids forever. What a gift to be able to go to any town and have friends. Literally, my kids have friends or family now in most every state and a variety of countries. And so by giving them that chance to experience things and life, the communication skills are phenomenal, especially if you talk about what you're doing and ask questions. They know how to fly or how to, just the different things you have to know in different states, toll roads, right? Bridges, like how many different things can you talk about and experience on the road? Friendships, right? All these different RSB resorts usually have some fun activities. My kids totally got into karaoke, and all of this created the amazing beings they are. At 13 and 18 now, my kids are so independent and they're so smart, and they have different things they want to do in life, and they are doing. And they have that certainty that no matter where they go, they can make friends. They can work. They started businesses on the road, right? Dog walking businesses. That was so fun. My daughter would make these little crocheted things for dogs too. So she started selling like pet accessories, which was hilarious. So just encouraging the things they want to do. They would have little yard sales, or go to swap meets, and because they wanted to have their own money on the road too, to supplement, whatever we were doing as a family, but so they could also be responsible with their own money, right? So I think you guys all get it. I'm preaching to the choir here of you want to do these things with your kids. You're excited about it. And I think it's really important to have a community of people that supports and encourages what you want to do. That was something that was really a challenge for me because, yes, my degrees are in education. I taught in public education for 10 years. But when I chose to homeschool my kids, because my son had type 1 diabetes, and with my daughter, we were just like, wow, this is a better option. It's more flexible. My kids aren't getting bullied all the time. They are leaders. We can choose the friends we want to hang out with, right? And you can choose what level of things you want to learn. You can adjust. And then also just having that flexibility, right? A lot of times you might be traveling or maybe you're at home and your kids just don't feel good. It's okay to have a day off. How many times in public school did they bring in a sub and, the TV was on? We were just talking about that the other day, my husband and I. You knew when the TV cart rolled out, it was like there was a sub. It happens at home too. Feel free. There's days where you're going to get so much done. You can log more hours than you would have, in a full week in school. And then there's other times where you're just going to be like, we're taking a movie day. Everybody's tired, and that's okay. You're going to read books today, or you're going to you need sleep. That's okay. And that was one of the things I found with the medical issues with my son was just if we kept rest in good track and kept, a good diet and everything, he did so much better. But if we were running our family into the ground, we got exhausted. And so one of the things we learned full-time traveling was initially we were traveling so much, like we were driving 8 hours a day and all of this. And we made a rule for our family that if we were going to drive, we wanted to be stopped for wherever we were going to spend the night by 4 p.m. And the reason we did that was it allowed us to relax and enjoy the experience more. It was so much more safe to be settled into our RV park or wherever we were staying. And then the kids could play. I could make dinner. We got to back in and get parked right while it was light. And so just looking and having that flexibility to make things work for your family. It might not look like everybody else's, and that is okay. It doesn't need to. Every family is unique, right? And there are some common things when you find a tribe like this. Like I bet all of us, Alicia, Kira, is it Sir? How do you say it? Sergio? Sergio? That's a cool name. Sergio. I want to know how you say it. And Malia. But we could have some awesome conversations, right? And connections on, what does parenting look like for you? What is a cool theme you're studying? Could you come in and speak to my family about somewhere you traveled that you could share your experience? And you find like these pockets of knowledge and mentors for your family. What is stressful? I'm Sophia. Okay, your name's Sophia. The way it's saying it in the comments, it didn't say that. Sophia, awesome. Nice to meet you. It's super cool. So I would love to open it up too and see, do you have any questions that you want to put in the chat for me, or you're welcome to unmute your mic? Seriously, you are welcome. I'm happy to answer them. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is snacks. There are so many. If you have kind of behavior issues coming up with your kiddos, I wanted to encourage you, check. Maybe it's not doing a finger poke for blood sugar like it is with my kiddo, but we made a rule early on of, before we're going to parent or consequences on something, we're going to see, does our kid need a snack? Are they well rested? Because so many issues can be avoided if you'll just help your kids with that. Now, some kids are grazers, right? They just want to munch. So you might have little snacks out all day. We had like fruit, vegetables. I always try to have a snack tray with like some kind of meat, cheese, fruits, vegetables, some nuts, so people could just grab a snack and keep their blood sugar up. Okay. If you're having a meltdown with your kid over reading or writing or math, it might not be anything other than blood sugar. Okay. Yeah. Your kids and you suffer from hanger. Hey, we all do, right? Yeah, Malia, Malia Waller. I think I saw you in our heartbeat group too. Cool. I'll connect with you more in there. My sister's last name is Waller, so that's really fun. Anger's a big deal. Yeah, exactly, Sophia. It's a big deal. So if we keep our blood sugar in check, and check it for yourself too, right? I'm someone, I tend to get low blood sugar. So if I will eat a little bit of food more often, I do better than if I skip a ton of meals. And I'll notice like the color comes out of my face, my legs start cramping, I don't feel good. My son, it's obvious because he gets really low blood sugar. And here's signs, because I can just tell you, okay, for him, low blood sugar looks like weepy. Literally, he'll get angry. He's not happy. He'll be extra emotional. Now, when his blood sugar is too high, and this you might notice with your kids too, if they've had a lot of sugar or a lot of carbs that break down to sugar, right? He just can't focus. He'll be real like jittery. He won't have as much attention. It almost shows up more as like ADHD behavior. But if he's in range, like 80 to 120, right, with protein and vegetables, or a protein, slow carb, fast carb, like keeping it more, where he shows me his pictures, I got 100. 100 is how we score in our family, our number based on his blood sugar, but his behavior is so much more on keel. So just notice that it could be rest, right? It could be a snack, but also if your child is constantly wanting to stop, say you're reading something and they just shut the book and they blow out and they get mad at you, the number one thing it probably is there's a word they don't understand. So we are big about defining words, looking it up in the dictionary, really making sure they have a full understanding of what that word is. Maybe you need to have them draw it out or act it out, okay? But it's so important to really make sure they're understanding what they're reading. That would honestly fix so many of the behavior problems and blowouts, because they just don't understand what that word is. Let's see. Kira said, any tips for working on finding interest for kids? Maybe I'm not asking the right question, but my 8-year-old just doesn't give me much info when I ask what he wants to learn about. So most of our current topics come from me right now, and he doesn't always love it. Okay, that's a really good question. So a lot of times for little kids, like when we're asking, I'm not sure what old your kid, 8-year-old, okay, he might not even know, right, what topics are out there that he could even study or learn about. So sometimes it's as simple as giving them a couple choices, right? If you bring 2 options, hey, are you interested in learning more about the ocean, or would you like to learn about rockets? Or observing. Maybe you just put out some blocks, or you bring some drawing materials, or you bring like one of those volcano kits. Check. You can notice and learn a lot about your kids from just observing. Is he someone who writes a lot? Does he really love to read? Does he like to do more hands-on things? Is he somebody who enjoys talking to people? So if you observe kind of more their natural tendencies and what they enjoy, then you might plan a field trip to like, one of those science museums. I haven't really met a kid yet who doesn't enjoy one of those hands-on, like in St. Louis, they call it the Children's Museum, and there's all these different hands-on climbing and jumping and science projects. We have a place here in Branson called WonderWorks that is all like the STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. So if your kid gravitates more that way, you might find maybe it's just he's not interested in crafts as much. It doesn't mean they wouldn't benefit from some exposure doing these different things, but a lot of times if we can see more what they're interested in by observing or bring a few options, we can see and allow them to have more say in it. See, Malia, we're working through vision issues in our house, and that has symptoms similar to ADHD. Vision therapy has helped tremendously with that and the reading confidence. My 8-year-old didn't know that how he was seeing wasn't normal, so he didn't know how to communicate that other than task avoidance. Okay, picking topics. What is he into in his free time? Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, sometimes they don't even know what's wrong. So it does take exploring, like observing, seeing what is going on, because there are some issues that maybe it's a non-issue if you can get a tool or a resource to help with that. And a lot of times just learning about it sometimes will clear it up too. Vision, obviously there's things, right? Talk to your doctor to see about similar things, but blood sugar is so interesting. And there's foods, right? You could eat that maybe help with your eyes. Does this help? Okay, good, Kara. I'm glad that's helping. Awesome. So one of the things too that I used to do in public school with my kids that I incorporated at home with my children was giving them the time to really create something. Like, for example, my son Wyatt, he loved to whittle. He got into like whittling and wood carving, and he would spend days like making all these cool, intricate homemade gifts. My daughter had a phase where all she wanted to do was crochet, so I wish I could have learned. If any of you are awesome at crocheting, I'd love you to mentor her, but I couldn't get it. Like, she would spend hours and hours, like, because we let them choose what they want to learn. It looks different, right? Because she might say, oh, today I want to learn about the ukulele, so she watches videos, and we got her a ukulele, and now she's like immersed in ukulele. She wanted to learn piano. She started learning Japanese using Duolingo. Before that, my son wanted to learn piano, and then he wanted to learn guitar, and we'll find mentors that are people to help them with those interests. I also let my kids choose. Like, if you're at home, if you're not traveling full time, like, we would say, we're not going to do all the things, right? But let's try like one thing this year you want to focus on. So maybe one year for my daughter, it was dance. Another year, they both wanted the song and stage boot camp because my kids love to sing. So we were like, okay, those are bigger investment things, but we'll commit the time to allowing them to do that. And sometimes by just giving your kids more time to experience something, they will try it out and they're going to figure out for themselves, I'm really not that great at this. Or, one year my daughter did basketball. She loves it, but she also loves playing volleyball. So it's like, which things are we going to do where we're not running everybody ragged, right? And I don't know how you guys are, but there's a tendency, maybe you were raised in this, maybe you weren't, but for me, it was like, there was always something to do, right? We were always in every sport and, Bible studies and all these event things. And it was so busy that we look back and it was just like, oh my gosh, we did all these things, but did we get to do any of them really to a level of depth that was amazing or not, right? My husband was a football player, so he played football and tons of it, but our kids didn't. We didn't have our son play football because my husband sells all those neck injuries and pain, from playing. We were just like, what else would you like to do, Wyatt? So, while we let him play football and we tried some things out at home, we didn't necessarily say no. We're like, go ahead and try it out, see what you think. He got into singing. He wanted to sing. And so having a mentor and performing on stages, that was something he really enjoyed, that we were like, okay, and we'll spend the time and money to help you do that. And getting to say yes, but maybe not to all things at once, right? Especially if you have a lot of kids, you could be so busy having your kids in dance, ballet, soccer, basketball, that you feel like you don't even have a family and you're just creating, cleaning up laundry and dishes and running yourselves ragged, right? But instead, maybe dialing it down to, could you get your schoolwork done with your kids in like, maybe it's a 2-hour bubble or like 2 to 4 hours. I was always like, I'm going to work a little bit with my kids. We're going to do some reading. We're going to do some writing. And we're going to maybe bake something. I did a lot of math and science in the kitchen, right? Of cooking, but also letting them try out recipes. Now, a lot of your kids, if they're little, you're not just going to be like, hey, take over the kitchen. But maybe they could make a snack tray. Or maybe they do get to bake with you and measure and help pour in the ingredients and you do it together. That's a really fun way to do it. If you have a kiddo who's a little bit older and you're finding some resistance, or maybe they're not sure what their interests are, allow them to pick. Like, hey, would you like to make breakfast, lunch, or dinner this week? Or like, they're going to probably pick one just because you're giving them a choice versus, hey, I want you to cook dinner tonight. If you're like, hey, would you like to look up some recipes and find if there's a certain food you enjoy? Maybe we could make a different recipe and we'll go to the store and get the ingredients to make that. So a lot of times, honestly, with kids, giving them a choice gets their buy-in instead of it's just my way. Okay. The portfolios, giving them some ownership of that. I would let my kids like pick the notebook colors they wanted. We would start with, getting a bunch of stickers and letting them decorate it. So they really personalize that portfolio and they take ownership of that. And then they would get to fill it with what they wanted. I'd be like, hey, what did we learn today? Let's sit down and, what kinds of things did we do? And my kids were like, oh, let's see, we went out to the pond and we caught a fish and we wanted to make our own lunch. Like they would do all these different things. And the hardest part for me initially was just learning to let them lead. And it might look different, it might look slower, but like giving them those tasks and responsibilities that are theirs and then not taking it from them, right? This is part of the positive reinforcement and choices I'd want to share with you guys, because like for me, I really like to always have my kitchen clean. But if my daughter's responsibility is she's doing the dishes, then I need to let her do it on her timeline, right? And sometimes there's natural consequences like, well, we don't have any plates. I guess we're eating on paper plates tonight. And then she's like, wow, I like my kitchen to be clean. I like to take ownership of this, right? But we're building habits for life. And I feel personally like I'm interested in raising amazing human beings who put more good in the world. And so a lot of that, loving my children, having genuine conversations with them, encouraging them, and also even helping monitor, like, with electronics. I don't want my kids plugged in 24/7, but yeah, we've talked about and found some social things that work for them. And my kids are a bit older, so they do have some ways to keep in touch with their cousins and friends. And, they have some different communication lines where when your kids are little, they're right there with you. So maybe you guys do, most of your things together, or you might find a play group in your area, or, just spending that time together to create those memories will serve you all well for the rest of your life, because you're creating that foundation in your home of the qualities that you want to help your children have the rest of their life, right? Kindness. How do you cultivate great communication? How do you cultivate, obedience? How do you cultivate listening and, effective communication where they can be problem solvers? So all of the things are valuable. Everything from cooking to watching a family movie together, right? To playing a game, having your kids create your own games. That might be something your 8-year-old might enjoy. If he's into games, my son went through a phase where like he was playing video games and then he wanted to create his own board games. And so we came up with like, what are the rules of games? And could he create it? And he made the tiles and all of this, and like a choose your own adventure game. And so everybody's interested in something, right? And like I said, if you get the time to watch and learn and talk about, what are some, it might not be that they even know yet what they want to be when they grow up, which to me, who does, right? We're all still growing. We're all still learning. We want to keep growing and learning, but lifelong learners who care about people who contribute positively to society, right? And their families. Maybe it's, hey, would we want to learn about like someone and go do a day in the life of a doctor today, or a veterinarian, or do we want to go, we used to have a friend who owned a restaurant and we would get to go in there and make homemade pizzas and, cinnamon rolls. So like different things you might notice, oh, you're interested in eating that. Would you like to go mentor? And we're going to take a field trip to this today. Let's see. How about busy schedules with multiple kids? Okay. When you're talking about that, Sophia, do you mean as far as like, are you guys going out a lot? Are you in a lot of different sports? Are you trying to see how to fit in all the different, like your reading time and writing? Because I'm happy to speak to that. Any 7. Okay. So if you and your kids are multiple ages, I'm assuming 2. Let's see if I can find out where you said your kids were. 7, 5, 3, and 1. Okay. So multiple busy schedules of multiple kids. So you might try like the Little Red Schoolhouse type schedule. Okay. Where if you remember, when we saw like those old movies, like if you have seen like the Love Comes Softly series or any of those, you know, in the Little Red Schoolhouse, like it was all multiple ages. And so when you can have the older kids teach the little kids something they know, this is a really awesome way, by the way. So you might have like a child who already is a reader read a story to your little kiddo during reading time. So now you're helping both. Like your 7-year-old could read a story to your 3-year-old, or a 5-year-old could read a story to your 1-year-old, or they look at picture books together. Having the older kids teach something to the little kids is really awesome. Cooking together, because everybody can have a job, and then handling some of those things, like if you can set up, this is math time and I'm going to have you guys working on different things, that can work. But I found it was even more effective if you needed some one-on-one time with one kid, then you set the other kids up doing something that they can be more self-directed. So maybe they're, you know, building with blocks or looking at picture books, something where you don't have to go and sit and read, where you're helping maybe your older kiddo with some math that they have questions on. But again, don't feel like it has to be like, oh, this is just a math block. If everyone's trying to do that, you're probably going to be frustrated because you're not able to answer all their questions at the same time. Or if you kind of divide and conquer, have the older ones model it for the little ones, even if the little one's just sitting there, right? Like they're doing their math or they're reading a story to the little one. That is so effective. And then you can also just break it into different blocks. Maybe this one is doing some art. Well, like stations would be really helpful for that, where you have like, okay, this is the art theme. We're doing pumpkins. I'm just going to go with that theme, but say it's pumpkins. And this one is like the painting station for that. We have all our books around pumpkins here. And then we're also doing our math around pumpkins, or a measurement station. But you could have each kid kind of working at their level. Does that make sense? And then if you're super busy and you're just busy schedule, let's see. Oh, interesting about video games. I definitely struggle with my 8-year-old, how much he wants to be on a screen. Allison Sycamore has a really cool program that is all about like virtual. If you haven't connected with her yet, Kira, she's in the group too. She did a session yesterday and she's one of my clients too. I can connect you with her if you want, but her program is all about like how to use technology and the things your kids already are using to basically homeschool, right? To teach them and incorporate their screen time to have effective communication. You're reading everything in there too. We love unit studies as a whole family, 3 and 8. Awesome. That's awesome. Busy life. So I want to just talk to this piece again about busy schedules and multiple kids, because we had so much time traveling in the car, right? Where we would just be traveling. I would have snacks in there. I would have my kids' portfolios. They would have reading. And then they would always have some kind of, I found like the crossword puzzles or like those word finds, books like that, where they could do things in the car. So we were always getting our studies done, reading, writing, math, you know, even those books you can even pick up at the dollar store. I liked a lot of those little resources. They had some really great, the mini math books there and at Staples, honestly, for even up through like 5th grade. Those were really helpful. And you could just have those in the vehicle if you're traveling around. So if you're going to different kids' sports practices and stuff, you might have like their little binder that goes in the car that has their things to work on, where they can just be continuously working there. Or we say, hey, we're going to get our work done in the car for an hour so that when we get to the park, we can play. Sophie says, do you plan your whole year ahead? I like to take and, like I said, have a theme for the year. Like when it was The World is Our Classroom. And then I based it on the different states we were going to in different countries. And we would kind of, because we were learning experience based where we were, we would base our theme based on where we were at the time. If you have a theme like community that you want to weave throughout your year, that makes it really easy because you can just plan it into the different blocks. But as far as planning a whole year ahead, the only way I would do that was within my themes. When I did that for my classroom and also with my kids, like if it was, you know, again, you could go with community. You could look at that. Okay, how are we helping in our community? And we're going to look at farms in the fall. How are we helping in our community and looking at service projects in the winter? How are we going to connect with our community with the master gardeners in the spring? How are we going to help with our community, you know, in the summer with maybe it's picking up trash or community projects. Okay. And then I could go through and connect with like mentors in the area on those specific things. That is kind of the yearly planning I did. I wouldn't so much say like, this is the exact book. I didn't do it like I did in public school where I was like, this is the exact book and the exact curriculum in math, and we're going to pace it and we're going to be working through At this point, I might say, these are the concepts I want to be teaching over the course of the year. So I make sure we hit these modalities, knowing that we're going to cycle and we're going to loop and we're going to continue to build on that. Does that make sense? Now, that being said, do what works for you. If you're somebody who feels better and you need that daily plan or weekly plan, because you can plan in field trips, or for traveling, you're going to need to buy tickets, or, decide where you're going to stay, you can absolutely do that, right? If you want to plan out just knowing, wow, for my state, this is what it says, how many days I have to have a reading, and log it. I would just capture all that so you have that logged and then put it away, because you're going to be doing what you need to for your kids based on where they are in that moment or that day, right? We haven't used curriculum ready. We're less structured, but we're constantly learning at any opportunity because we're busy. So I count anything as school. I think I can probably resonate with some of your ideas, but I was hoping to hear some other ideas that could improve our life, but it sounds like we're doing okay. Yeah, sometimes, to hear like that validation, like it sounds like you are doing okay. And I think that's honestly one of the biggest things is there's no specific way to do it, but do what works for you and your family. Okay. For my family, I found that with my kids, we had a sweet spot in there about 10 to 12. That was a really great learning block for us. And then usually we'd have lunch, and then another block we might do from like 1 to 2. And then we would have our schooling done. So I always tried to do like a reading, writing, math. And then our afternoon, we would go and have a field trip, right? We'd go to a museum, or we would go to a park or something like that. So simple structures to me, I found worked a lot better. Now, if your family is like early risers, maybe you want to do your core school stuff from like 6 to 8. That is up to you. But I do want to stand in the space of do what works for your family. Look at your family's happy meter. Are you guys getting along? Are people working together? Are you finding that you need, more structure? Because you can always put more structure in. But if you know you're going to have a late night with sports, you might not want to plan to have to start school at 8. That's kind of the blessing of homeschooling, right? My kids like a slower morning. They want to have breakfast. We have our family time in the morning and scripture study. And then, like I said, it's worked nice because 10 to 12 is my work block. Before that was my teaching block with my kids. And then also, if I need to work 10 to 12, they would do the things they could do independently, so that after lunch, now we're going to check in. Okay, how did everybody do? Did you get your math done? Did you get reading done? Did you get writing done? And then, hey, what's the plan for this afternoon? What are you excited about learning? And I would put them in charge of it, so they would start to take ownership of those field trips. They got to plan them. They started to ask those questions, and then we would create around that. We're doing a reset for our entire life, and I'm loving it. I feel so free, and I'm happy spending time with the kids. This is great. I mean, honestly, you guys, so many times when we come to these workshops and trainings, I hope you have some validation that what you're doing, if it's working for your family, have that be your gauge of success. It might not look like everybody else's. My life certainly doesn't, but it works for us. And that's the great thing. If your kids, maybe you guys want to have we used to do like a reading marathon, because my kids had books they want to read. So guess what? We were going to read for 2 days, like fully reading books. And then other days they're like, Mom, I really want to do some math. Great. So we focus on math. Mom, I really want to check out the science kit, because we went to a store and they found something they wanted. When you're doing it based on interest, you can spend more time, and you'll find that these conversations just happen. And you can also block more time. I like time blocking. If you find that you need more time for something, that you can schedule that into your day. If you want some set schedules and things like that, I would say look at what works for your family based on, do you want to put in exercise? Do you want to make sure you have time for your meals? Do you want to have specific course subject time? Sure, block that in. If you have to have an hour reading, hour math, hour, writing, but maybe make sure you put in your snacks as well on time. And then if you have some kind of outdoor excursion or outing or time with friends, all that counts. Okay. If you guys have any other questions for me, I want to encourage you. Thanks for sharing. I'm so glad to hear that what you're doing. I'm glad to hear that what I'm doing has worked well. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? If it's working for your family, yay, keep doing what works. It doesn't have to look like everybody else's. If you guys are happy, if your kids are healthy, if they're learning, these are all great things. And feel free to share that with others too. Like you said, I want to invite you guys again, if you want to come into our Heartbeat community, you can ask more questions. We have a lot of times when people are homeschooling, they can miss having a community or people who understand. It's a family-friendly community. We've got everything from beekeeping to travel, homeschooling, recipes. You're welcome to hop in there. It's free. You can make an intro post and then check in the threads section. It looks like a little hamburger with 3 lines, and you'll notice all the different topics. You can communicate with people, make friends, reach out. You might find people right in your area. I'm always happy to answer more questions because I know homeschooling is an ongoing thing, or unschooling, right? Learning what works for your kids, double down on that, and feel free to change it as they grow. Because I noticed that when my kids were little, they loved like the little mini schoolhouse, and I would do all the themes, and I had a more structured like 2-hour block with them. But then as they got older, they were more independent and they knew what they wanted to learn. So we would do more project based. Okay. So feel free to adjust that with the growth of your kids. Have lots of resources for pre-K up through about 5th grade. And then, like you said, feel free to reach out. I'm so glad that you guys were here. I'm so happy to meet you. Did you have any other questions for me that you want to ask in the chat? Okay, and then like I said, just please join in that Heartbeat community because you can connect with me there, and I'm so happy to connect with you more. You can also send me emails if you want. My email is trina@trinagunzel.com. I'll put that in the chat too. And I have like a best educators, a resource guide. If you were interested, if you have little kids like under 8 years old and under, if you want those poems, chants, and songs, I have a big thematic thing that really would handle like your thematic stuff for the year. If you want that, it kind of gives you an insight to the things I did, and I can send you that guide. If you just email me, I can send you, or ask me in the chat. It's also in the Heartbeat app where you can just download it. You'll just basically put your name and email, and you'll be able to download that PDF. You're welcome. I'm so happy to meet all of you. Thank you for taking the time. It was my absolute pleasure. Again, I'm Trina Gunzel, and feel free to reach out to me in Heartbeat or in the group, and I'm happy to help you. Have a great day. You're welcome. My pleasure. Bye. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.